So let's get started by looking at how to set up it for your application. In this flow, we are going to talk about setting up ATS integrations for a use case where you want to run either AI interviews or assessments, pre-hire, screening, any of those. When you sign up on Net, on the left, you would see Getting Started as the first nav option. This is where you want to get started. This has 4 steps that we would follow. Now, the first thing to do here is to select the category that you want to integrate with. So here I've already selected applicant tracking systems. When I click on next, I would be asked to set up a webhook, register a webhook. Now, the key thing to note here is that this is going to be a single webhook for all the ATS integrations that happen. And any data that you're syncing from the ATS application to your product, which is things like getting job details to map the right interview to the right job, getting applicants for a specific job, for a specific job that you want to run interviews for, and any of those, all of those details would get sent to this webhook. Now, for the setup, I'm going to use a dummy webhook, but you should ideally set this up on your servers. Now, let me go ahead and register this dummy webhook from webhooks.site. I'll go in here, paste the webhook, and I'll have to test it. Now, these are the two models that we support, jobs and applications. I'll have to go ahead and test each of these events. Now, at the moment, because I'm using a dummy webhook, it's automatically giving me a success code of 200. Um, but when you're setting it up for your environment, you have to make sure that for each event that you're consuming successfully, you pass back a status code of 200. Because NIT runs managed things. If you don't do that, NIT is going to keep retrying the events every half an hour, and uh, it may. I mean, in a great scenario, that's something that you would want because if something fails, NIT automatically retries. But if that happens in the happy flow, your webhook pipe's essentially going to get clogged with events which you've already consumed. So make sure that you um, pass a 200 code whenever you receive uh, an event when you're setting it up for your environment. Now that I've tested it, I can go back and see that I've received 14 events here. These are the ones that we tested, right? So that's all done. Now let me go ahead and save the webhook URL. So this is the backend setup that you've done, right? So this is where you would receive data. Now the third step that you would have to do is set up or embed the NIT UI SDK. Now, this is, I mean, as long as you have any version of JS running on your front end, this should be straightforward. So you could follow these steps and set it up for you. For this case, because I'm just testing it, I'm not going to be embedding this. Instead, um, I can maybe very quickly show you how it would look once it's done. Or what you could also do is just register or create a magic link for testing and then eventually embed the UI SDK. Let's just do that. Test 3. I'm marking this as a test account for now. Test accounts on it get purged every 30 days so that it keeps your account clean. Um, switch this off. And I've already selected applicant tracking system. Let me generate a magic link. So for your customers or to test, you could use, I mean, you could share this link with them to integrate their ATS. This is a hosted experience. When you embed this, this is what they're going to see on within your product as well. So here your user could come in, select the ATS that they want to integrate with, key in the credentials, and be done with it. Um, I'll just copy the integration ID for later. Now this is done. In the final step, make sure you select the fields that you're interested in. So two things to be done here. One is the data models that you want, both within jobs and for applications, should be selected. Now here, as you can see, each of these submodels have more information within them. So you could take a look at whatever details you require. For example, in case of running interviews, it's necessary for me to get the job ID, job title, job description, and also the status of the job to make sure I don't run anything which is already closed, right? So those are the details that I want. Similarly, for applications, I definitely need to have all the basic application info and the job ID that comes with it, because that's how I would map it, and then the candidate details, because I'm going to send them an email with the link to take the interview. But depending on your use case, make sure that you select the right data models so that you receive all the information that you need in a single payload. And then for the updates that you have to make or the right APIs that you need to call, you could go over the APIs here and also set them up. So, for example, once an interview is done, I want to be able to push the candidate to the next stage. So here, what I would do is I would use this API to make that call. Now, the bit to note here, whenever you're making the API call, is that it would need two things in the header for the auth. One is the X integration ID, and the other is the authorization key. The authorization key is nothing but the NIT API key. So if you go onto your dashboard here under API keys and webhooks, you would see your own production account API key here. So this is what you need. One, so this would go in your authorization. Yeah, this is what would go here. And if you remember, I had copied an integration ID in the magic link. This is a unique ID that gets generated for each integration. So I'll also go back, and for now, I'll just copy one of the IDs that I already have. But this is something that you would require for each of your integrations. And you receive this as a callback whenever an integration happens from the UI component. So, so you need to pass both of these and then make the API call. The parameters required are also mentioned in the documentation. So that's about it. Now, depending on the flow that you're expecting for your users to follow or the business workflow that you have, you could orchestrate these API calls as required and get going with it. Once you start running integrations, you would start seeing logs for all the API calls and webhooks that are passing through net for your reference and for debugging later. That's about it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on our email or on Slack if you're connected with our team. Have a good day.